The universe stretched endlessly, a silent ocean of stars where loneliness hid behind every glow of light. On the edge of that vast darkness was a planet named Viralia, a place of beauty and perfection, but no heart. Its cities shone like glass towers floating above silver clouds, ruled by beings who looked flawless yet felt nothing inside. The Virelians were an ancient and intelligent race. They had mastered energy, gravity, and time. They could heal wounds in seconds and build cities that touched the skies. But long ago they had made one cruel decision. They erased emotions from their DNA. They believed feelings were the reason for wars, for pain, for mistakes. So they removed them all: love, sadness, anger, joy, everything that made a soul human. Among these emotionless beings lived Elira, a young researcher who worked at the Central Observatory of Viralia. Her job was to study cosmic signals, analyze radiation, and record changes in the universe. Her movements were calm, her voice soft and perfect, her eyes silver and cold like moonlight. She had everything: knowledge, beauty, and peace, yet something in her life felt empty. Every evening, after her work ended, Elira would stand by the balcony of her laboratory. She would stare at the twin moons of her world, glowing softly in the endless night sky. The stars looked alive, sparkling with secrets that no one on Viralia cared to know. The wind brushed against her pale face, carrying whispers of a universe she could not touch. Sometimes she placed her hand over her chest, feeling the slow beat of her artificial heart. It was strong and steady, built to last for centuries, but it never raced, never warmed, never hurt. It only existed to keep her alive, not to make her feel alive. And deep inside, though she did not understand the word for it, Elira felt something strange, something like loneliness. She would often ask herself questions her people never asked. What lies beyond our system? Why do other beings fight, love, or dream? Why do I feel different? But no one had answers. Her colleagues thought she was malfunctioning. One of them once told her, "Elira, curiosity is dangerous. The universe is chaos. Viralia is order. Be content." And so she stayed quiet, but her heart, even if it was mechanical, was not silent anymore. It was searching for something she couldn't name. One evening, while she was monitoring the deep space scanners, her console beeped, a sound that had not been heard in decades. A signal was coming through, faint but real. She stared at the data flashing on her screen. It was a distress call, an old communication pattern, one that her database could barely decode. The message repeated over and over, like a weak heartbeat echoing through space. She enhanced the frequency, trying to clean the noise. Then suddenly a voice came through. A voice unlike any she had heard before, rough, emotional, alive. "This is Commander Ethan Ward of the United Earth Expedition. Our ship is stranded near the Helian moon. We need help, please. Anyone out there?" Elira froze. She replayed the message again and again. The voice trembled with fear, with hope, with something she had never known: emotion. Her colleagues arrived when they saw the alert. They listened once and laughed. "Humans," one of them said coldly. "A primitive species. Always destroying, always begging for rescue." Another said, "Ignore it. They are emotional creatures. They always make mistakes. It is not our concern." But Elira couldn't ignore it. The sound of that human voice had touched something inside her. Something her creators had said didn't exist. She found herself whispering, "He sounds alive." That night she couldn't sleep. Virelians didn't need rest the way humans did. But Elira sat awake, her mind replaying the message. That voice, undeep, tired, and sincere, haunted her thoughts. She wanted to know who he was. Why did he sound so desperate? Why did she care? For days she kept listening in secret. The signal grew weaker each time. The human's voice became slower, sadder. She felt a strange ache in her chest every time the message ended. It was as if her heart was learning to feel pain, something her kind had forgotten centuries ago. Finally, she made a decision that would change her life forever. She turned off her main communication feed and opened a private channel. Her fingers trembled slightly as she spoke into the transmitter. Her voice was soft, unsure. "This is Alira of Virelia. I received your message. Who are you?" For a few seconds there was only static. Then the human voice replied, the weak but filled with emotion. "You're real. You actually answered." Alira closed her eyes, feeling warmth spread through her chest. She didn't know why, but that single moment felt like the beginning of something extraordinary. For the first time in her existence, she didn't feel like a machine built for duty. She felt like a being reaching for another soul. And so began the story of Alira, the loveless and lonely alien, and the human who would teach her the meaning of a heart. The stars above Virelia seemed different after Alira heard the human's voice. They were no longer just points of light. They were doors to a world she had never known, a world alive with emotions, dangers, and connections. For days she studied the signal, decoding the fragments of the distress call with meticulous care. The more she listened, the more she felt something stirring inside her chest. Curiosity, fear, and an unfamiliar pull she could not name. Alira's laboratory was silent except for the hum of machinery. Normally she would work with precise efficiency, her movements exact, her mind calm and clear. But now each beep of her console felt urgent. Each signal pulsed like a heartbeat she could almost feel. Commander Ethan Ward's voice repeated over and over in her mind. "We are stranded, please. Help." The plea was simple, human, and terrifying. Her colleagues noticed her distraction immediately. "Alira, your scans are incorrect," one said, scanning her readings. "Nothing of significance is coming from the Helian moon. Focus on the regular surveys," but Alira ignored them. Their voices sounded distant, hollow, as if coming from the other side of a wall she could not touch. She was consumed by the human voice, by the vulnerability and honesty it carried. She wanted to reach through the stars to give him help, to connect, to do something that her people had forbidden for centuries. Finally, she discovered the coordinates. The human ship was damaged, stranded on the barren surface of the Helian moon, its energy core failing, its crew weak from lack of food and oxygen. Alira's hands shook slightly as she plotted a course through the quantum relay channels. Her heart, a heart that had never known love or fear, raced in a strange rhythm, mimicking the feelings of the human she had never met. She remembered the warnings of the Virelian High Council. No contact with inferior species. Emotions are weakness. Do not intervene. Yet she could not stop herself. Something inside her whispered that this was important. More important than obedience, more important than logic. Something called compassion. And for the first time she recognized the word. Hours later she opened a private communication channel again. Her voice was soft, almost hesitant. "This is Alira of Virelia. I received your signal. Tell me, what happened?" Static filled the channel for a few moments, and then the human voice came again. Clearer this time, full of relief and disbelief. I didn't think anyone would hear us." "You're real. Someone actually responded." Alira felt a shiver she could not explain. She had studied hundreds of alien civilizations, translated countless signals, but none had ever spoken to her in a way that stirred her being. She hesitated, then asked, "Your ship, your crew, are you in danger?" "Yes," he said. His voice cracked. "We lost power. Life support is failing. Some are injured. I don't know if we can survive until help comes." The human fear in his voice made her chest ache. Alira didn't know why she cared so deeply. Her kind would have ignored the problem, calculated probabilities, and recorded the loss. But she could not. She felt urgency, fear, and determination, emotions she had been told were weaknesses. She began to relay instructions, carefully guiding them to stabilize the ship. "Seal the northern compartment," she instructed. "Divert power from the auxiliary shields. Conserve oxygen and cycles. You must stay calm." "Calm?" the human muttered, almost laughing despite the terror. "Easier said than done. Thank you. I don't even know who you are, but—" Her heart, the thing inside her chest that had never beat faster, tightened at his words. She didn't answer immediately. She couldn't. She realized for the first time that she wanted to know him, not as a scientist studies a specimen, but as a being reaching out to another being. Over the next few days, Elira worked tirelessly. She transmitted schematics, energy manipulations, medical instructions. She learned about humans by listening, their habits, their humor, their fears. Commander Ethan spoke of home, of planets where the skies were blue, rivers flowed freely, and life was fragile yet vibrant. He spoke of laughter, of mistakes, of love. A word she had read in old Varelian texts but never understood. Late at night, alone in her observatory, Elira whispered to the stars, "What is this feeling inside me?" She touched her chest, where her heart might have been, and felt warmth, longing, and something almost dangerous. Hope. Hope that she could reach him. Hope that she could make a difference. Hope that maybe, just maybe, she could feel love. And somewhere, in the darkness between stars, a human crew clung to life, unaware that a silver-eyed alien was learning how to care. The universe, Elira realized, had opened a door to her heart, and once it opened, there was no turning back. The journey through space was long and quiet. Elira piloted her sleek silver ship through the dark currents of the Andaran Nebula, every pulse of the engines echoing like a heartbeat she was only beginning to understand. She had never felt nervousness. Before, it was an alien sensation crawling along her spine, tightening her chest. But now, as the coordinates drew her closer to the Helian moon, her mind raced with anticipation. For days, she had listened to the human's voice. Commander Ethan Ward had become more than a signal. He had become a presence she imagined beside her, a reality she had never dared to allow herself. And now, at last, she would see him. The surface of the moon was barren, gray rocks stretching endlessly beneath a thin, faintly glowing atmosphere. Elira landed carefully, avoiding jagged cliffs and fissures. Smoke curled from the wreckage of the human ship, and tiny flashes of emergency lights pulsed weakly. Her heart, her real unprogrammed heart, ached at the sight. Humans were fragile, unlike her kind, yet somehow full of determination she had never known. She stepped out of her ship, her boots silent against the rough ground. The first human she saw was Ethan, tall, broad-shouldered but lean from exhaustion. His uniform was torn and dirt streaked his face, but his eyes, those bright living eyes, held a fire that seemed to pierce the cold night. "Who?" he started, shielding his eyes against the moonlight. Then he saw her. Elira, her silver hair glinting like starlight, her pale eyes staring back. He blinked. "You're not like anything I've ever seen." She stepped closer, keeping her voice calm, steady, though inside her chest fluttered. "I am Elira of Virelia. I received your distress signal. You are not alone anymore." He hesitated, uncertain whether to trust her. The humans had been betrayed before, attacked by aliens, left for dead. Yet something in her tone, quiet, patient, sincere, made him believe. "I'm Commander Ethan Ward," he said finally. "And I think you just saved us." The other crew members emerged from the wreckage, weak but alive. Elira's hands moved quickly, guiding them to safety. She used Varelian technology to stabilize the ship, to repair broken circuits, to restore failing life support systems. The humans watched in awe, whispering among themselves, marveling at her skill. During the repairs, Ethan and Elira spoke. He told her stories about Earth, blue oceans that stretched forever, mountains that touched the sky, cities filled with music and laughter. He described human bonds, friendships, and even the strange, messy thing called love. Elira listened, fascinated. His words were imperfect, clumsy at times, but full of warmth, full of life. She had read about these things in ancient texts, but hearing them, feeling the excitement in his voice, awakened something inside her that had slept for centuries. "What is it like?" she asked softly one evening as they worked side by side. "This emotion you speak of." Ethan smiled, a small, tired smile that made her heart, her strange, untrained heart, ache. "It's everything," he said. "It can hurt, it can confuse you, it can make you afraid, but it can also make life worth living. You feel it, and suddenly nothing else matters." Elira's chest tightened. She did not know what it meant to feel afraid, to hope, to care for someone. But as she watched him struggle to repair a damaged oxygen conduit, her silver eyes softened. For the first time in her existence, she wanted, desperately wanted, to protect another being. Over the following days, they worked together in silence and conversation, building trust, repairing the human ship, and sharing quiet moments under the alien sky. Elira noticed little things. The way Ethan laughed when something went wrong, how he frowned when he worried about his crew, the gentleness in his touch when helping an injured member. Each gesture, each small human imperfection, drew her closer, made her chest ache, and filled the empty spaces inside her. One evening, as the twin moons rose over the jagged horizon, Elira stood watching Ethan from a distance. He looked at the stars, his silhouette soft against the gray moonlight, and she realized something that terrified her. She cared. She cared about his life, his safety, and his presence. A soft breeze swept across the moon's surface, lifting strands of her silver hair. Elira pressed a hand to her chest, feeling warmth she could not explain. She had never believed in connection, in the strange, messy concept of friendship, let alone love, yet here she was, longing for someone she barely knew, a human who had taught her the meaning of something her world had forbidden. And as Ethan turned and met her gaze, smiling through fatigue, Elira felt the stirrings of a feeling she had never known. For the first time, the loneliness that had haunted her every day began to fade. A human, imperfect, fragile, alive, had crossed the impossible distance between worlds. And with him, Elira felt, perhaps, the first spark of her own humanity. The stars above were silent witnesses, watching as the loveless and lonely alien began to learn what it meant to feel, to hope, and to care. And in that quiet, fragile moment, a bond was formed, one that would challenge everything she had ever known, everything her people had ever taught her, and everything she had ever feared about her own heart. Days passed on the Helian moon, and Elira found herself lingering longer than necessary near the human crew. Every laugh, every tired sigh, every small act of kindness they showed one another fascinated her. She had never seen beings so fragile yet so strong, so imperfect yet so full of life. Each human motion, each word, seemed to awaken something within her that had long been dormant. Commander Ethan Ward became the center of her attention, whether she wanted it or not. There was a warmth in the way he cared for his crew, the way he spoke to them with patience even when exhaustion wore him thin. Elira had observed countless species in her long life, but none had ever moved her like this. She had been told emotions were weakness. Yet now, watching him, she felt strength, a force she could not resist or deny. One evening, as the twin moons rose high above the jagged horizon, Elira and Ethan worked side by side repairing a damaged communications array. Sparks flew from the equipment, reflecting in her silver eyes. She glanced at him, noticing the way he furrowed his brow, concentrating yet still managing a small, tired smile. Her chest tightened. Ethan looked up and caught her staring. "What is it?" he asked, a hint of amusement in his voice. Elira blinked, unsure how to answer. I am not sure," she admitted softly. "There is something I feel, but I do not understand it." He tilted his head, studying her as if seeing her for the first time. "Maybe it's fear, or hope, or something like curiosity," he said gently. "Sometimes feelings are complicated, but that's okay. You don't need to understand them all at once." She swallowed, feeling an unfamiliar warmth spreading through her chest. She pressed her hand there instinctively, as if trying to touch the feeling, to hold it in her grasp. It was frightening, this new sensation, beautiful and terrifying at the same time. Her world had been cold and precise, a perfect machine of order. And now, for the first time, she felt a storm raging inside her, an awakening she could not stop. The human crew began to talk about their home planet, Earth. Ethan described green forests swaying in the wind, oceans reflecting the sky like mirrors, the laughter of children playing in the sun. Elira listened, her heart trembling with emotions she had no name for. For the first time, she imagined what it would be like to live among beings who laughed, cried, loved, and fought not just for survival, but for the bonds that connected them. One night, Ethan handed her a small, battered music device. "It's a song from Earth," he said. "Humans sing it to remember hope even when things are bad. I thought, maybe you'd like it." Elira hesitated, then pressed play. Music poured out, raw, imperfect, and yet unbearably beautiful. It was a melody filled with longing and courage, sadness and joy intertwined. She felt her chest constrict, and then warmth spread through her like sunlight on cold metal. Tears sprang to her eyes, tears she had never known she could shed. I do not understand this," she whispered, her voice trembling. "Why does it make me feel so full yet so empty?" Ethan stepped closer, gently resting his hand near hers. "That's what music does," he said softly. "It reaches parts of you you didn't know existed. It reminds you that you are alive, really alive." For the first time, Elira allowed herself to cry openly. She felt joy, sorrow, wonder, and fear all at once. The cold walls that had protected her all her life crumbled. She realized that her loneliness had never been about the absence of beings around her. It had been the absence of connection, of emotion, of someone to awaken her soul. Ethan watched silently, understanding in his gaze. "You're alive now," he said simply, "and that's all that matters." From that moment, Elira felt a profound change within herself. Her silver eyes sparkled with unspoken emotion. Her steps held a new purpose, and her hands trembled not from mechanical precision but from feeling. Something raw, unrestrained, and beautiful. The loneliness that had defined her existence began to fade, replaced by hope, curiosity, and something deeper, the fragile beginnings of love. She realized that for centuries she had been alive in body only. Now for the first time she was alive in spirit, and the human, Commander Ethan Ward, had awakened her heart, teaching her that life was not merely survival but connection, empathy, and the courage to feel. As Elira stood beneath the twin moons, listening to the soft hum of repaired machinery and the faint laughter of humans, she whispered to herself, "I am no longer alone. I am beginning to understand what it means to live." And in that quiet, starlit moment, the universe seemed to pause, acknowledging that somewhere in the vastness, a loveless alien had found the stirrings of a heart, fragile, fierce, and fully alive. Elira had never feared her own people before. The Varelians were logical, precise, and unyielding, but they were also her world, the only world she had ever known. Yet now, as she watched the twin moons rise over the Helian moon, a chill crept through her chest. For days she had aided the humans, learning from them, caring for them, feeling something her kind had forbidden: empathy, connection, and the beginnings of love. And now, the High Council of Virelia had discovered her actions. Their message arrived with the sharpness of a blade. You have violated the sacred laws. You have been infected by primitive emotion. Cease all contact and return to Virelia immediately. Failure will be met with termination. Elira's hands shook as she read the command. Her chest tightened. The strange warmth inside her now mingled with fear. She had known the consequences of disobedience, yet she could not comply. To leave the humans behind, stranded and weak, would be a betrayal of everything she had come to feel. A betrayal of herself. She closed her eyes, taking a deep breath, and allowed herself to remember Ethan's voice. The raw courage, the kindness, the simple honesty in his words had awakened her heart. Could she abandon that? Could she betray the spark of life she had never known she possessed? No. The Council's demand left her with a choice. Obey the cold laws of her people or follow the stirrings of her heart and protect the humans. The weight of her decision pressed on her like the gravity of a dying star, and for the first time in her life, Elira felt fear. Not the clinical fear of danger, but the raw human fear of loss. Ethan approached her as she contemplated. His eyes, tired but unwavering, met hers. Elira, what's wrong? She hesitated, trying to find words. The Council knows. They demand that I stop helping you, that I erase all contact, that I abandon you. Ethan's expression darkened. We can't let that happen. You can't leave us. I won't allow it. I cannot disobey them lightly, she said, voice trembling. They will punish me, perhaps forever. He reached out, gently taking her hand. Then we will face it together. You saved us once. Let's not waste what you've started. Come with us, leave this place. Don't let them take what we found here. Elira's silver eyes glistened with tears she had never known she could shed. The humans had taught her courage, warmth, and connection. Yet now to follow that path meant defying everything she had ever been. She looked at the crew she had saved, their eyes full of hope and exhaustion, and realized she could not turn away. The Council's ships arrived in orbit, sleek and cold, cutting through the sky like blades of judgment. A transmission echoed in her mind. Surrender immediately, Elira. You are a disgrace to Virelia. Elira's heart thundered in her chest. The human ship hovered beside her, waiting for instructions. She knew what she had to do, even if it terrified her. Ethan, go. Take them away. I will delay the Council. He grabbed her arm, shaking his head. No, I can't leave you. You must, she said firmly, though tears rolled down her cheeks. If we face them together, all will be lost. I will hold them off. You must survive. You must live. Ethan's eyes softened, torn between fear and understanding. You're impossible, he said, trying to smile through his worry. But I trust you. With a trembling hand, Elira activated a series of energy pulses, creating a barrier to slow the approaching Virelian ships. She guided Ethan and the crew into a hidden warp channel, ensuring their escape while she remained behind. Every second stretched like a lifetime as the Council's forces closed in, their cold, unfeeling energy pressing down on her. Elira's heart pounded with a mix of fear, determination, and something more profound, the realization that she was truly alive. She had chosen empathy over obedience, connection over isolation, love over perfection, and in that choice, she discovered the strength that her people had denied her for centuries. The Council's message repeated in her mind. Emotion is weakness. Yet she no longer believed it. Strength, she realized, was in feeling. Strength was in caring and risking everything for another life, in letting the heart guide you even when the universe demanded cold logic. As Ethan's ship disappeared into the folds of space, Elira stood alone, facing the approaching fleet. Her chest swelled with courage she had never known, tears streaking her pale face. The stars above seemed to shine brighter, acknowledging her defiance. She would fight. She would endure. And somehow, somewhere she believed that the bond she had formed with humanity would endure, even if she could not. For the first time in her existence, Elira knew what it meant to live fully, to risk everything for someone else and to feel deeply. She was no longer just an observer of life. She was a participant, a protector, a heart awakened, and in that quiet, electrifying moment, the universe seemed to hold its breath, witnessing a loveless and lonely alien step into the light of courage, hope, and love for the very first time. Elira's silver ship hovered alone in the shadow of the Helian moon. Below her, the Varelian fleet advanced like an unstoppable tide, their energy pulses slicing through the darkness. She could feel their judgment, cold and unrelenting. Yet her chest for the first time was alive, pounding with courage, fear, and a strange, beautiful emotion she could not name. She was terrified, yes, but she was alive, and she would not let fear rule her. Ethan's ship had escaped into the warp channel, carrying the crew to safety. She watched it disappear, a small glimmer of light in the vast emptiness. A part of her wanted to follow, to leave and run, to abandon everything she had ever known. But the human had trusted her. The crew's lives were in her hands now, and so she made her choice. Elira activated her ship's energy core, diverting all power to create a massive shield. The approaching Varelian ships slammed against it, their weapons bouncing harmlessly off her protective barrier. Sparks flew across her console as she strained to maintain the energy flow. Her hands moved quickly, efficiently, but each movement was guided by something new, a fierce, human-like determination. The Council's transmission blared in her mind, sharp and unforgiving. "Cease your interference, Elira. Submit or be destroyed." She pressed a finger to the screen and whispered, "I will not submit. Not now. Not ever." Below, Ethan and the crew navigated the warp currents, unaware of the full danger she faced. Elira's chest ached at the thought of leaving them unprotected. She had learned to care, deeply, completely, and that care had awakened something inside her stronger than fear or logic. Love. Her ship shook violently as the Council's fleet intensified their assault. Energy beams tore through the darkness, and Elira gritted her teeth, focusing every ounce of concentration on holding the shield. Sparks danced across her console, alarms blared, but she refused to look away. Every pulse of power she sent out was a promise. To the humans, to Ethan, to the life she had finally begun to understand. "Elira." Ethan's voice crackled over the channel. "Are you still there?" "You don't have to fight alone." "I have to," she shouted back, her voice trembling but strong. "Go, survive." "Live." Tears streaked her pale cheeks as she realized what she was doing. She was staying behind, facing impossible odds so that the humans could live. The concept of sacrifice she had learned from them was not weakness. It was strength, a strength her people had never allowed her to feel. The energy core of her ship began to overload. Sparks flew like lightning across the control panels. Elira pressed her hands to the console, directing every last surge of power into the shield. The Varelian fleet faltered, caught off guard by the intensity of her defense. "Hold on," she whispered, more to herself than anyone else. "Just a little longer?" The ships of the Council started to retreat, realizing they could not breach her barrier in time. Ethan's ship emerged from the warp channel safely, the crew cheering, unaware of the full price of their freedom. Elira smiled through her tears, feeling a bittersweet warmth in her chest. She had saved them. She had given them a chance to live, even if it meant giving up everything she had ever known. With one final surge, Elira directed the remaining energy into a massive pulse, propelling the Varelian ships back and creating a temporary shield around the humans' escape path. The energy pulse rocked her ship violently, and she was thrown to the floor. Her vision blurred, but for the first time she felt alive in every sense. I am alive," she whispered, voice barely audible, a smile on her lips. Not alive as Virelia had defined it, precise, emotionless, and perfect, but alive as humans were alive, full of love, hope, courage, and the beauty of connection. As her ship's systems began to fail, and the Virelian fleet regrouped, Elira's thoughts turned to Ethan. She had never felt so deeply for another being, had never known a heart could hold such fierce affection, and though she might never see him again, she had given him life and he had awakened hers. The stars above the Helian moon shimmered softly, as if recognizing her courage. Elira's silver eyes reflected the light of distant galaxies, her last thoughts filled with gratitude and love. For a moment, the universe seemed to hold its breath. A loveless, lonely alien had chosen connection over isolation, empathy over obedience, and love over fear. She had learned what it truly meant to live, and in her sacrifice she became immortal in the hearts of those she saved. Her last smile lingered as the lights of her ship dimmed. She had given humanity a chance, and in doing so, she had finally discovered her own heart. Years passed, but the memory of Elira never faded. On Earth, Commander Ethan Ward often stood beneath the night sky, staring at the stars that stretched endlessly above. The humans he had once led remembered the alien who had saved their lives, the silver-eyed being who had risked everything to give them hope, courage, and a chance to survive. But for Ethan, Elira was more than a hero. She was a symbol of something he had never expected: the beauty of connection, the power of empathy, and the fragile, extraordinary gift of love. Ethan would sit quietly in the evenings, thinking of her. He remembered the first time he had seen her on the moon, her calm presence against the chaos of the wrecked ship. He remembered the way she had guided them, healed them, and taught him that life was more than survival. It was caring, risking, and feeling. Her actions had been selfless, her courage unmatched, and yet her humanity, though alien in form, had shone brighter than any star in the sky. On a quiet hill overlooking a small city, Ethan placed a statue he had commissioned, carved from silver stone shining faintly under the moonlight. The figure depicted Elira, her silver hair flowing, her eyes gentle and alive, and her posture strong yet kind. Beneath it, the inscription read, "Elira of Virelia, the alien who learned to love." He stood back and whispered, "You taught us what it means to live. I hope you know, you changed everything." The humans had learned from her too. The technology Elira had shared, the knowledge she had given, had advanced humanity's understanding of the stars. But beyond the machines and discoveries, she had left something far more valuable: a lesson. That empathy, courage, and love were strengths, not weaknesses. That connection could transcend worlds. That even in the vast emptiness of the universe, one being could awaken another's heart. Ethan often walked alone at night, staring at the galaxies, remembering Elira's voice, her laughter, her quiet determination. He recalled the music she had once listened to, the soft hum of her ship's engines, the way her silver eyes had reflected hope even in the darkest moments. Her memory was alive in him, in the crew, and in every life they had saved because of her. Sometimes, when the sky was perfectly clear, Ethan thought he saw a streak of silver light across the stars, a shimmer that moved differently from the other stars. He would pause, heart tightening. Could it be her? A trace of her presence in the universe? Or was it a reflection of what she had left behind in every heart she touched? And even though she had sacrificed everything, even though her people had never understood her choice, her spirit remained, a whisper among the stars, a heartbeat in the cosmos, a memory that would never fade. Ethan often spoke to her in those quiet moments, words carried on the wind of memory. "You gave us life. You gave me hope. You gave me you." His voice was soft, almost a prayer. "I hope you can hear me wherever you are." The humans, too, honored her. Stories were told to children about the alien who had seen the human heart, who had defied impossible odds, and who had shown them that courage was not measured in power or precision, but in the willingness to feel, to love, and to sacrifice. Elira became a legend, not just for her deeds, but for the light she had brought into the hearts of those who had never known it. Ethan often thought about what Elira had felt, what she had become in those final moments. Her silver eyes, her quiet smile, the fierce courage that had shone brighter than any weapon. It all stayed with him. He realized that though she had been called Loveless, she had loved more deeply than any being he had ever known. Though she had been lonely, she had connected more fully than anyone could imagine. And though she had vanished into the stars, her presence endured, alive in every act of kindness, courage, and empathy that humans carried forward. Standing beneath the night sky, Ethan whispered again, a gentle smile on his lips, tears glimmering in his eyes. "You were never alone, Elira, and you never will be. Not in my heart, not in theirs, and not in the universe you loved so much." Far above, among the countless stars and distant galaxies, a faint shimmer pulsed briefly, a heartbeat in the dark, a reminder that somewhere, somehow, Elira's spirit continued. She had been loveless and lonely once, but she had discovered something the universe could never take away. A heart awakened, a legacy that would endure forever, and a love that transcended worlds. And in that quiet, endless moment, humanity, fragile, flawed, beautiful, carried a part of Elira with them, a spark of courage, hope, and love that no darkness could ever extinguish.